So, dear teachers, hello. In this video, we are going to be working on oracy skills. This is June video 1 for teachers. Now, what is the agenda? We are going to be talking about what are oracy skills, why are oracy skills important, what might prevent the learner's progress, oracy sub-skills, and tips and ideas for the development of oracy skills, sub-skills in remote and in-person teaching context. So, what are oracy skills? Oracy skills can be defined as the range of speaking and listening skills, behaviors, and language necessary for effective communication and collaboration. Oracy skills encompass physical, social, and emotional, linguistic, and cognitive aspects of learning. So, it's very important that you take into consideration these aspects of oracy skills, these 4 dimensions. So we have the physical dimension, linguistic dimension, the cognitive dimension, and the social and emotional dimension. Might be a good piece of advice to tell you to take a picture of this, because we are going to be using this along. So why are oracy skills important? And let me tell you, through spoken language from birth on, the children learn how other people make sense of the world around them, how to express feelings and emotions through the language, how to express identities, because the way you use the language and the intonation, the stress, the words you choose, they show, right, your identity, how to follow a conversation and the uses of the language in the different contexts. The children take up the language of the social context, and you might find some examples in your country regarding how children get the way of talking of their community. Okay, we are going to be talking about it's how ways of talking shape ways of thinking. This is very important, and how ways of thinking shape the way we express ourselves. So language and thinking, they go together, remember. Now, be careful here then. A child who is denied a rich language experience and has poorly developed oracy skills will have the chance to take an active part in learning seriously diminished. So it's very important that the children are exposed to rich language experiences and rich language contexts so they can get the best models of talking and speaking and producing language, right? Possible. Why it might prevent the learners' oracy skills development. For example, if you have a low frequency of oral work in the class, the learners are going to have very poor possibilities of developing and learning to develop their oracy skills. The parents' demands, sometimes parents are pushing too much. They want to see their children produce very early. And so the children's motivation goes down, their affective filter goes up, and therefore children don't want to be exposed, and they don't want to participate, and they don't want to show how much they have learned. So be careful with parents' demands. The teacher's attitude towards the learner's efforts and attempts, how you react when they speak beautifully, how you react when they make a mistake, how you react when they are struggling to produce a sentence or a chunk of language. So be careful and try to observe your reactions and how they might be promoting the development of the oracy skills, or they might be preventing that. The exposure to poor examples of language. If the case happens that the teacher, right, or the head of the school or the head of the English department, they have a poor command of the language, the children will have those models, become poor models of the language, and therefore their oracy skills will be poor. And another thing that has to do with how to, prevent the learners' oracy skills development is when they have poor or untimely feedback. And this is very important. If you're going to be stopping the child every time he or she makes a mistake and correcting that in front of the class, blah, 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 the child will then, resist participating. So try to be very careful here how and when you provide feedback. Now, what makes oracy skills? And we have two lines of soft skills here, the speaking soft skills and the listening soft skills. Regarding the speaking soft skills, we have to improve the children's pronunciation, the use of stress, rhythm, and intonation, right? And in order to pronounce the words perfectly so they can be understood. The way the children use the word order to express themselves, using appropriate vocabulary, using the appropriate language register, right? That is very important. And how to construct and build an argument. These are things that you have to bear in mind when you think of speaking sub skills. What about the listening sub skills? You might be listening for the gist. You might be listening for specific information in an oral text. You might be listening for details, right? You might be listening for the attitude of a speaker or the singer or the actor. You might be listening to understand the, what's the mood of a text you're listening to. You might be having extensive listening, same way we have extensive reading, that is reading for pleasure. We might be doing this extensive listening for pleasure, for them to relax and have fun, and listening for individual sounds we want them to polish or pay attention to. So here go some tips and ideas in order to help you guide your learners to better communication, oral communication. Now, we need to increase the exposure of the learners to rich language examples. How can we do this? We have a balance, right, to keep. And we might have two sides of this scale. On one of the dishes, we have authentic materials that are good providers of authentic language, right? And we have ELT materials. There are those materials who have been planned and perfectly scaffolded for the children to develop a certain skill. So we might keep the balance here because we need our learners to be sometimes exposed to the real world, the real context where they're going to be using the language. So how can we offer authentic materials? Through listening to the radio, TV broadcasts, films, TV shows, series. Imagine lots of sources of real authentic materials and real, sort of real speaking or conversations, because I mean, spontaneous conversations might happen through an interview, but they don't happen through a series or an acting performance, right? But anyway, they're good sources of information, and you have native speakers talking. On the other hand, the ELT materials, you have ELT videos and ELT audio recordings that are very well planned and very well produced for you to help your learner understand certain features before they go to the authentic materials. Then we may have songs in either side, authentic songs or ELT songs, web pages, web pages for native speakers, for children who are native speakers, and they are also learning the language. And on the other hand, you have web pages for English language learners, right? So it's good for you to use those web pages as well. And of course, the brightest model of the language is the teacher. So in this case, the child is looking at you as their role model, and they say, okay, I want to speak like this teacher, okay? So what is very important then? It's very important that you use English as much as possible, right? When we talk about using translanguage features and this and that, it doesn't mean that you teach English through Portuguese, please. What it means that sometimes we can use Portuguese to explain something and then go back very quickly to English. So they must be exposed to English as much as possible, because you're the only source for them to, look up to. And then you are the best model they have, and you are there, very next to them. So it's very important that you become this source of inspiration, and you have a very good English, you are improving your oral English, and you keep on developing. right? So you keep on studying, you keep on developing, you keep on using the resources you have at hand. Stanford Evolution Resources, they have plenty of information for you and possibilities for you to keep on learning. So learn the language while teaching, and magic happens. You learn a lot. So don't put away materials that you believe they're quite challenging for you. Bring those materials and you develop with your children. Okay? It's very important that you increase the time of the learner's exposure to those who reach language examples. So devote most of your time, of your in-person time, of your synchronous teaching time to oral work, please. And leave the writing, the coloring, the painting, the drawing for the asynchronous teaching, okay? Leave it for that, because when you are with the children, you need to be exchanging ideas, thinking, working together, and using the language. How to cope with the parents' demands. This is very important. Please listen to the parents and try to answer their questions, not the questions you think they have. Listen to the parents. Sometimes the questions are much more simpler than what you have thought. Design a short and clear explanation of the process of the development of the oracy skills, so parents know what to expect from, right? They might know, they should know there is a silent period. They should know that children will attempt to answer to some questions and they will make mistakes, and it's okay, right? And then they will polish and that and blah, blah, blah. So talk to them and explain the process. Give parents guidelines on how to help the child without pushing too much. And keep parents informed. This is very important that you keep the parents informed and you meet with them regularly, right? You have other guidelines here, you can read them later, but it's very important that you meet with them regularly and explain things to parents. What is the attitude you should be having? Please remember, you have to be very polite, very professional, but at the same time, keep calm and understand that your children are doing their best, and try to figure out other ways of helping those children who are still struggling. So to promote oracy skills development, it's very important that you create a talk-rich environment. You use flashcards or stories or games in order to prompt talking and invite them to speak. But if the classroom doesn't have a safe atmosphere where the children know they can make a mistake and nothing happens, right? They are not going to do it. So be careful that your classroom is an inviting classroom for children to take risks, the risk of talking, right? So promote teamwork and use musical activities to hone listening and pronunciation skills. All right. Now, in our next video, we're going to be working on oracy skills development, concrete teaching ideas and tips for your lesson in early years, primary and secondary school. See you.